In the spirit of AI coding and all of that fun stuff, you guys get to see the slide deck for the first time today. And you get to see it for the first time with me, who's also going to see it for the first time. I have no idea what's in the slide deck. This is completely generated by Claude. So I thought this would be fun. So we're going to jump between slide deck. We're going to jump into things. Feel free to interrupt me, ask questions as we go. I want this to be a very interactive presentation. The goal is, obviously my background's .NET. Thanks to Claude Code, I have built several Vue.js and Node.js and Cloudflare worker stuff lately, and I couldn't even tell you what's in the code base, but I know it worked. So I guess the Utah.js is after this, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should go to that meetup too. Anyways, so yeah, so thanks for the introduction. So I met HARMAN International. I've been there for about 5 months, just over 5 months now. And so this is actually kind of a cool, this is why I kind of want to make it interactive, because what's interesting about this is, so HARMAN International was bought by Samsung several years ago, and it's a wholly owned subsidiary of Samsung. And as far as I understand, Samsung went over to HARMAN and said, actually, I guess, let me step back just a second. Who's familiar with HARMAN International? Has anyone even heard of HARMAN International? No. Okay, I'm willing to bet everyone in this room knows what their products are. Has anyone ever heard of JBL, the speakers? That's HARMAN International. What's that? Oh, and that's crazy. Learning about the audiophile industry is just, it's like a fire hose in itself. So HARMAN International owns HARMAN Kardon. It was originally HARMAN and Kardon. HARMAN bought them out, became HARMAN International. So they have JBL, Infinity, a whole bunch of other brands. They just bought like Denon, Marantz, Polk Audio, B&W. If you buy a luxury car, it's going to have speakers made by HARMAN International. So anyway, so the point is that Samsung buys them, and then a year or so later, they go to HARMAN and say, go buy Roon. It's a company, it's a product, so it became the product name. So Roon, it's ROON, and it really targets audiophiles. If you have your own like large collection of audio, it gives you like just this rich music experience where you can combine your collection with some online streaming services and so on and so forth. But that company's been around for, I think it's been around in some structure under different names in different ways since I think maybe the late 90s. So the code base is grown quite a bit. You've got a mix of, I think we've got like Lua in there, we've got C in there, we've got Ruby in there, C#, F#. We built our own build tool, build automation, our build script generation structure based off of something called Premake, which I'd never heard of before I started this company. We have several mobile apps. We've got some desktop apps, some server edge pieces, all stuff. So anyways, it's a large code base. And I think we have like an entire Flutter app on top of that in there. So a lot of Dart. Then we have some cloud stuff and a lot of JavaScript. I think it generates like 30, 40, 50 microservices out of that one folder. So anyways, this big like repository. So I started 5 months ago, and that's a pretty daunting task to come into because all the CS project files are generated on the fly every time. There's this native code, just lots and lots of pieces. And so it was kind of really interesting and neat and fun to come into this company at this time because Claude Code really was becoming more and more popular. And I thought, man, this is a cool time to get an experience of jumping into a code base that's massive, that even if I come from a company like, oh yeah, I know where the solution file is, I open it up, I can hit F5, I can start debugging through it. We don't have that luxury yet. I'm working towards it. So the best I have is like fire up a text editor and poke around the code and see and play with it. So I feel like, so it was a lot of fun playing with Claude, and we'll get into a little bit more about that. So anyways, that's just an idea of who HARMAN International is, where I'm at with that. Let's see. All right, yeah, so about me, we kind of covered that. So context switching. So we're gonna play, I guess this is kind of like PowerPoint karaoke here. So what I did was, in order to generate this, so this is a one prompt generation. This whole slide deck is from one prompt. And the prompt was, I have to give a presentation. Here is the intro on Meetup. And here's a list of questions that were submitted before the Meetup. That was 100% of the prompt. And the questions weren't even formatted. I literally copied out the email, pasted it in, and it destroyed all the white space. So I'm like, well, I'll figure it out, right? So a lot of these slides will probably touch on topics and questions that you've brought up or posted initially. Context switching is interesting. I want to touch on it a bit because you look at it a couple different ways, right? How many people work from home here? So, quite a lot. So I guess how many were working from home and got nailed by the return to office policies that have been floating around? And not bad. Huh. Anyway, so work from home. How many have other people in the house? Significant other, kids, animals? How often do they come in and go, hey, I just need 2 seconds? And then it's like a 30, you end up with it's like, yeah, it might be 2 seconds to you, but that's a 30-minute hit to me. And so in software, practicing Agile, Waterfall, whatever you pick, how many of you had experiences where your boss comes in and is like, hey, I need you to look at this real fast. It'll just take a minute. I saw some smiles. I assume that most everybody's experienced that at some level, whether it's a boss or coworker or whatever else. So context switching is pretty I would say, is it fair to say that context switching is expensive and detrimental to your process?
Context, is that when you get it around?
Yeah, context switch is pretty much anytime you take some train of thought, you stick it on the side and you switch to a different one. So it's kind of the same thing in like a threading,
You have to put it to
it's just a different frame of mind in a way, right? So you go from solving problem A to addressing problem B. Maybe you resolve B, or you get, hey, here's problem C, and then you're like, hey, where's A? So you go back to A, and then you switch to C, and then you switch to B, and you switch to A, and so you're constantly switching, and then you forget details between them, right? So there's context switching in a more traditional computer science frame. There's just context switching, talking to humans, working on tasks. Like, I mean, we can even take it as kind of rudimentary and simple as hammering a nail, and you miss the nail, you hit your finger. Your context switch changes, and you may forget by the time you've resolved your finger being in a lot of pain, what you're even working on, and might lose details or forget things. Right? So anything that distracts you from your current task at hand. So what do we got? So we got IDE, browser, terminal. Yeah, so this is like a different context switch. So I was just out of curiosity, how many what kind of products or spaces do you guys develop in? Is it like mobile, browse, like web apps, desktop apps, backend? What's kind of the mostly web? Okay. Mobile, okay. Do we have any like really kind of backend or DevOps or okay. Okay, yeah. All right. So when you're developing software, do you do it 100% from one window? Or do you, in the sense of like, your code's there, you open up IDE of choice, and do you live 100% in that IDE, or do you end up having to jump? Like web, I assume, you're jumping because you got a browser open, or mobile, you're firing up a simulator or a physical device, or whatever the case might be. Backend, I guess you could probably like database browser, but that could be an IDE. I don't, but you're just kind of changing screens in there, maybe? Okay. Oh. Five terminals or five? Actually, monitors. See, I've moved to a 48-inch OLED LG TV. Life-changing, guys, life-changing. I have no more seams, and although it's big, my focus is in the middle. My distractions are on the fringe. I love that. I've got stacks of monitors on my floor because I moved to that TV. So even within an IDE and stuff, so you're shifting, you're changing context. Like, so you're writing some code, you're checking some, you're debugging, you jump over here, you validate some state, whatever the case might be, right? So that's kind of what we're building up right here with that. It's so funny because I feel like AI is changing so fast that there's statements I made last year that I would never agree with today, but I would stand by that statement at that time. So just out of curiosity, I should have started here. I apologize. Let's do this. What AI tools does everybody use currently? So we'll just go down the list here. How many are using ChatGPT? And then when I say, sorry, I apologize. When I say ChatGPT, I mean like you have the ChatGPT browser or something open, not GitHub Copilot. Okay, so I'm gonna quickly make that differentiation because I know you can run Copilot or was it like Open Router, and you can have all these models coming in. But I'm talking like open up that brand, that company's tool. So ChatGPT. All right, so well, okay, I'm just gonna go down the list because yeah. Dang it, it's so nuanced. Okay, how many people have used ChatGPT ever? Because I mean, you go back 2 years ago and I was using ChatGPT quite a bit, and I was like, this is amazing. I gave it a screenshot and it pumped out a bunch of XAML code, right? So if you're currently actively using ChatGPT, okay, so your workflow is you ask it questions. Is it knowledge driven? Is it like, hey, generate me this code, and then you copy and paste it? What's that workflow look like for you?
A lawyer.
Okay.
So I have pleading case decisions from
Okay.
court, and then questions.
Nice.
I have that drafted up for me.
I had a conversation with my good buddy who's a lawyer. I've got something to show. I'll bring it in. That's really neat. In fact, he hates me now because he's like, dang it, dude, I already paid for 2 others. Yeah.
I use ChatGPT and Claude in the browser for SQL queries. Because I don't want to stick it in my IDE, and I don't want to run it. I want that buffer.
Hey, look, you know what? If you're too chicken to run it in production, that's okay.
Are you using our testing?
We'll go 1 and 2. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Just I'm going to totally tangent for just half a second. How many people, let's say 3 years ago, how frequently did you use Google.com for something? Like almost all the time?
Yeah.
Like incessantly, like to the point where like you became like more of a heuristics engineer. People come ask you a question, well, let me Google that for you. How much Google.com do you use today? Okay. I was gonna say I'm probably closer to like almost not at all. Like it is remarkable how rapidly that's dropped off for me. It's just curious. All right, so we got ChatGPT. Let's go with Grok.
Never used it, don't ever want to use it.
That's we're not going to get. Hey, okay. Here's my rule of thumb. I'll talk politics outside of this. We're not bringing it up in this conversation because I don't want to waste time on it. It's not the place for it right now.
About Chatbot.
Well, I'm just going through different major LLMs, right? So like ChatGPT, OpenAI, that's a big one. Grok, right? If you use Grok as well. Okay. Let's see what. All right, let's go. Who uses Claude in the browser or the desktop app? But not. We're going to differentiate between Claude Cowork and Claude Code. Okay, so fewer. So ChatGPT seems to be kind of the predominant one. Is that kind of fair? Sorry, you raised your hand and I.
I'm online, but I use Claude Code almost exclusively for everything and connect it to all my tools.
Okay, awesome. All right, how many use GitHub? We'll do GitHub Copilot. Okay, I'm curious, and I have carefully ordered these. So GitHub Copilot, how do you use GitHub Copilot? Like in what is it inside of Visual Studios, inside of Visual Studio Code? Is it
Most of the time I use the command line, then
Or the
sometimes I'll be in like their IDE, like Writer.
Oh, okay, all right. Oh, and I apologize, I forgot Gemini. Does anyone okay, so Gemini is a popular one. Now, is it Gemini web browser or is it also Gemini console terminal? Both? Okay.
Anyone have a problem?
We'll dive into it a little bit, but I'm partially curious. I'm just kind of getting feedback, the ideas here, because. By the way. Oh, yes, right, yeah, that's right. And they just dropped 5.3, I think. Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's the thing. So I've noticed over the years, I've seen developers that are like, don't ever show me the black box. I don't want to see a terminal. I don't want to see a blinking cursor. If it doesn't have a GUI, I'm not interested. And then I see developers that have just consoles or terminals open and a couple other a few applications. So just gonna get a feel for that. All right, let's keep going. All right, so Claude Code. So this is where I'm gonna really dig into. This is my go-to. So the statement I made last year was you'd be insane not to be using GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot in Visual Studio Code was really cool, very powerful. Just be able to do a lot of really neat things. And I'm like, you're insane not to use it. And then Claude Code came along. And I almost haven't used GitHub Copilot since then. The exception is when I ran out of tokens, and it's my fallback. So it's interesting. This is actually not 100% accurate. So how many people have used Claude Code? Okay, so a few. Let's see. How many are aware of Claude Code but haven't used it? And how many is this like, oh, I didn't know Claude Code existed? Okay. And I'm counting on anyone monitoring Teams because I'm not looking at Teams at all. If anyone. So Claude Code is kind of where I live my life now. I use it pretty extensively to the point that I arguably really haven't opened up Visual Studio since last summer. And I have an enterprise license. And I just haven't felt the need. They've actually released some new integrations, some new agent integrations that I want to go check out. But on the whole, I don't know to open up Visual Studio. I have Project Writer. I don't really open up Project Writer. If I need to edit a file on occasion, I'll fire up Visual Studio Code and just use it straight. So Claude's kind of come on the scene. This is Anthropic's thing. They've been growing and building. And you're seeing it kind of bleed into all kinds of aspects of life. Like, I haven't tried it, but they have Claude inside of Microsoft Excel. And the comments I was seeing online about it was like, hey, Microsoft, you have Copilot. How did Anthropic beat you to this and provide a better tool than your own tool inside of your own tool, right? So Claude Code, it's a terminal-based app. It runs on Windows, Mac, Linux, etc. They actually have kind of a Claude Code in the web now, which is really neat because I've been places and I've got an idea that pops in my head. I pull up my iPad, I go to the browser, I go and create a GitHub repository, link it to it. I give it an idea and it starts coding it and sending pull requests over to my GitHub account. So it's to the point where I can actually generate new applications on the spot. I've even had it on my phone and someone's like, hey, this would be a cool idea. I wonder if it's, I'll just pull up my phone, plug it in, and off it goes. It's starting to build this piece and that piece. And it's really slick. Very, very cool. This is one way to install it. They've kind of been shifting away from this, it seems, to a native installer because then it's self-updating. It seems to just work a little bit better. But if you've installed one and then you install the other, I recommend running what's called Claude Doctor on the console. It'll help determine whether you need to remove the old NPM version for the native one. It might even be the same code, it's just structured a little bit differently, I guess. I don't. It seems to be popping up more and more lately. For capabilities. So let's see. So on a daily basis, so those that have used Claude Code or might use it, just thinking about what do you use it for? Like, what's your determining factor of I'm working on this piece of code, I'm going to open up Claude Code and have Claude Code do X. Like, what is that workflow for you? Like, how much do you offload to Claude versus using it as more of an assistant? Okay.
I have it on and do file in my project, but at time of in.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
Preference. I'll use focus on. And once I have what the go-to plan, on that, so I'm not burning through tokens.
That's probably a smarter play. I'm an Opus addict. I don't think they ship a different model than Opus. Anybody else?
Question along with that. How many people are now realizing that you can enter local? Not into the problem with token. You don't run into the problem where companies like banks read about sending their data up to the cloud and they run into the local. Is that dynamic has changed?
It is. You're seeing a lot more. Olama seemed to be a big disruptor in that. The new, is it Kimi 2.5 is getting rave reviews. There's obviously a lot of models. Docker's made that easier. Actually, honestly, I had a neighbor go, gee, I wish I had something that did this. And part of that was a voice to text translation. So there's the Whisper models. And then I wanted to take that data, analyze it, and then convert it into a form, or have it analyze the data and then fill out the form accordingly. And I didn't want to get an API key or anything like that. So honestly, you know what I did is I fired up Claude Code and said, hey, build this, and then use Whisper and Olama for these two things. And it went and actually pulled all the stuff, set up the local models for me, and it worked. In fact, actually the Whisper, it picked the base one, didn't work very well. I was like, oh, we'll just move to the small one instead. And so it took care of all that for me. I wonder if there's a learning curve and also a hardware restraint there.
I think some of it has to do with the training, because when you bring that down local, you don't have the luxury of it's already answered to however many questions in the world, and it's gotten smarter with the answers. And instead, when you bring it down local, a lot of times it seems like to me that it's going out doing a Google search for you or some kind of search engine and bringing that information.
So instead of having a better cursory knowledge of things, it knows how to go obtain that and then.
But as far as from a coding standpoint, not pretty damn bad doing it local, and you don't have to build it.
Yeah,
Right.
I haven't exceeded my budget yet, so I haven't messed with local models very much myself. And so, but I think it's. Yeah, and honestly, I've been having a conversation with my wife just the last couple of days, and I'm probably going to cancel my ChatGPT account because I don't use it and I don't find it useful. And it's like, I realized, I'm spending $20. No, but it's not. Actually, it's a topic we should hit, but maybe not directly in this. But it is an important topic. And even within the Claude Code, people are starting to use Claude Code, and there's some stuff to allow Claude Code to actually use some of those local models and other things.
Local training.
Yeah, I've got a lot of scattered thoughts on that stuff. Because my previous job, we were actually training our own AI models for medical imaging. And so, yeah, so we were actually building models from scratch using PyTorch and other things to detect bone structures and label different aspects of the bone structure and organs and things like that. But yeah, that's a whole different ball of wax than this one. So okay, so let's keep going here. I want to burn through the slides and then play with some stuff. All right, so we're just gonna kind of jump through these. What it can do for you, yeah, debug fix. I've gotten lazy. If I do a git rebase, I'm like, hey Claude, go fix the rebase for me. It does it. Honestly, I guess I don't use it. I use a little bit for refactoring. I generate a ton of code with it. I use explore and explain in certain ways a lot. Writing tests, sure. Workflows, yeah. I mean, the nice thing is it's kind of interesting because as you move up in levels, right? I mean, you look at programming languages, machine code, we have assembly, move up to C, C++, and then Java, C#, and whatever else, right? And over the years, I've heard arguments, oh, people don't understand how pointers work and memory management, and and there's a ton of truth to that. I feel like there's certain things that I don't readily remember as well as I did, like certain commands and their arguments. However, I feel like my general knowledge and my depth in certain areas has actually grown much faster as a result of using these tools, because you get to see and engage with it and like, oh, I didn't know it could do that. In fact, I think like the whole world now is aware of Git work trees, and that suddenly like, hey, there's this cool feature. Like, yeah, it's been there for a while. Yep. Yeah, I haven't decided how I need to use it more. The problem I have with it is that you have to go back to the original one. So you almost need a clone that's untouched where you can pull down the latest code changes, because you can't pull down and rebase onto main from one of the work trees if you want to. You have to update the main one, and then you can update the work tree, which is kind of annoying, but so like, for example, I'm working on a feature branch, right? And obviously, working on it for a few days, it's going to diverge from main. And so what I'll typically do with my feature branch is I'll get rebase on main so that when I push it up for a pull request or the final approval, it hasn't diverged from main, right? I'm testing against the latest changes. So I'll do a constant like, pull down main rebase, right? But in a work tree, you can't do that. You have to go back to the original directory. Right, but usually I've got so many branches going that it's my work set, yeah, but that's the thing, is I'm probably not using it the best way. So I need to dig into it, but I love the concept, because I hate, like, I mean, how many times have you guys have been in the middle of a project, right? And you're sitting there like, oh, I wish I could do, this would be such a cool idea. And you're like, oh, do I file a ticket? Do I write on a Post-it note? What do I do with this? And now you can literally just go, hey, go create a work tree and start, create a plan, start working on that idea, and it goes off in the background. And so now those side quests, those tasks that took 3-4 hours previously are now a 10-15 minute thing in the background that you don't have to think too much about. You don't lose that context as badly. Getting started, install, you run Claude. So the Claude MD that was mentioned earlier, whenever you launch Claude for the first time in a directory, it will prompt you, hey, run /init. That basically goes and analyzes the thing, builds this file, and helps reduce kind of your token burn, because there's already this kind of structure and ideas about the code base in there. Yeah, your first problem can be whatever, right? If you want a project, maybe you want to run that, whatever that case might be. So, all right. Oh, okay. So someone did ask about cursor and codecs. I'll be honest, I think I installed Cursor once. I never used it. And I haven't actually used Codex. Because by the time I kind of dropped OpenAI and ChatGPT, Codex came after that for me. So yeah, my assumption is that they're all going to be fairly similar. Obviously, Cursor is a fork of VS Code. I knew that much, and it's kind of that IDE experience. You can get you've got Copilot in there. Now you got Claude inside of Visual Studio Code. So it's probably pretty similar. Sure, yeah.
Wait another 3.5 hours for my tokens to reset. Try Codex out, and I had Codex start working on a problem that I would have done with Claude Code probably in about 45 minutes. After about an hour, it had gotten most of the way through, but it hit a critical bug that it was troubleshooting, and it burned the rest of its tokens trying to fix that bug. And then it said, well, you'll get more tokens at the end of the week. And so I hopped over to Claude Code and said, Codex was trying to do this. It was a translation from C++ to C.
Okay.
And said, well, Codex got most of the way there, but these tests are failing. And it went and said, oh, I see your problem. C++, your rational class has a constructor that initializes it to 0 over 1, and in C, calloc is initializing it to 0 over 0. After that, the whole thing just, 45 seconds in Claude and it was not fixed.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder, is the model that much better, or is it just dumb luck? It's the same thing as you grab any developer, and it's like, I've spent days on this, and you start explaining it to them, and in 30 seconds, you're like, I know what the problem is, right? So it's like a rubber duck effect. So, anyways.
Yeah, I don't use it, but people would talk to you. Code is sort of like a mapper, similar to.
Yes.
Yeah. Be pointed at like Gemini.
Yeah.
And so like the same workflow. So like if you're like bouncing on token limits.
Is that driven with the Open Router project? Or no, was it Open Router?
Sure. So only the interesting thing is Claude Code says it's against their terms of service. Apparently,
They just cracked down on it.
And
in the last week or so.
And like people are pulling strings on that because like do they really want to ban like 50,000 paying people when they're trying to raise more money and like get their valuation up? But like the fact that I can just use Claude Code, I don't know like why would I want like an adapter if I'm going to primarily use Claude Code, but I also
So I haven't tried it out yet, but remind me, and I'll talk about something very specific to that. That I think is pretty interesting, and it actually kind of ties into what you were talking about. So remind me, we'll come back to it because that is something that's very worthwhile hitting on. Okay, so let's just jump on. Power features. Okay, so actually, I'm gonna probably accidentally jump ahead of myself here, but whatever. All right, who's familiar with MCP servers? Okay, who's heard of MCP but doesn't know what they do? And who's like, what the heck are you talking about? Another 3-letter acronym. Yeah. Oh, we probably have a whole bunch of conversation on what a server is. Oh, right. So don't read too far into MCP server, right? So MCP is Model Context Protocol. It was something that Anthropic came up with, I think, not last November, but the November before. So November of 2024. And they kind of released it as a standard out for everybody. Anyone that's really dug into it will probably kill me for saying this, maybe not. Think of an MCP. So there's an MCP protocol, there's SDKs, you can write your own MCPs. An MCP server you can think of as like an API server, right? You're going to write a bunch of code and you got to run it somewhere. So you could run an API server on your desktop, you could run it in the cloud, you could probably go serverless, you could do all these things. An MCP is still evolving, and it's got a whole bunch of different aspects, and I don't want to get too far into it, but think of it as like an API server, but for LLMs. And the idea is that there's this concept of tools and what these tools can do. So let's just say GitHub, for example. So you can have a GitHub MCP. GitHub will host it for you. You have your keys, you log it, you add this MCP. What it can do is it can go out and you can say, hey, I want to create a repository. So GitHub has written an MCP tool for repositories, and one of the tools in there is to create a repository. So it knows how to do all of this stuff for you. So you basically say, hey, LLM, I've created this new project. Go ahead and initialize it, make the first commit, and then go out to GitHub, create the repository, and push the code up there. And that's where the MCP comes in. It's basically a way to interact with real raw data in real time. So an example of an MCP server that I used really early on was actually a Postgres MCP server. So we fired it up. We told it, we set the configuration, said, hey, this is where our Postgres database is. So we pulled down one of our Postgres databases and loaded up on a local machine, loaded up the MCP server, made the LLM aware of it. And we said, hey, go out and analyze this Postgres database. And so the LLM could probably figure out how to engage with it and use what is like MP, SQL, whatever the command line tool is, and run commands on its own. But the MCP, like you get hallucinations, blah, blah, blah. The MCP server, it knows exactly how to interact because it's a hard-coded set of instructions and tools. And it was really neat because we were able to say, go analyze our database, go analyze the columns, go all of this stuff. It actually went through, ran queries, ran performance testing on the queries, and gave us a whole report of all of the things that we should do to improve it, things that are deprecated, like, hey, this column's not being indexed, because it was able to look at the source code, our source code and the database, and it basically generated this massive report. It was kind of interesting because we had outsourced to like a Postgres DBA, and he came back and it was a very similar-ish list to what the LLM with this MCP server had accomplished. So it's kind of neat. There's tons and tons of MCP servers. It is fairly new. It almost seems like MCPs came up really fast and are almost kind of dying off slowly in the background a little bit, because there's some caveats to it. But obviously there's security concerns, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, right? So don't just go willy-nilly, oh, MCPs, that's cool. Oh, it connects to this, and it connects to this, connects to this, connects to this. And suddenly, your bank reads 0 and there's a Nigerian prince that's wealthy. Who knows? So I mean, there's obviously security concerns. Everything has security concerns. But with MCPs, typically my rule of thumb is I'll use one if it's from a vendor. So another example is, like, I've used Sentry.io for crash analytics monitoring, stuff like that. And then I'll have whatever my bug tracker is, my build system, and my source code. So I fire up Claude Code. I have these MCPs going, and I'll say, hey, go out to Sentry.io, find the #1 crasher I have this morning, pull all the details, go analyze the code base, go generate a fix, then use my GitHub MCP, go submit the code up to create a branch, submit it up to the GitHub, and then create a pull request for it. And then go and notify Slack or whatever that case. So it's really interesting that you can use Claude Code to say, go find my top bug, go fix it. If you did that every morning, sometimes it works out great, sometimes it doesn't. But could you imagine every morning fixing your top crasher in your product, and it took you 5 minutes to orchestrate the heck? You could turn it into a task and you don't even have to do it. So by the time you walk into the office, you've already got a PR with a potential fix to your top crasher from as of that time frame. You can do 24 hours, whatever else. I've used it in cases where, like, I tied into Atlassian and Jira, and if support or QA sends me a bug, I'll say, hey, go scan Jira and go find any other bugs in our backlog that are similar to the one I'm currently looking at. Take that information, suck down the logs, analyze the logs, go look at the code base, go write a whole bunch of unit tests, and see if you can use TDD to solve that bug. So like just the other day, someone sent me a bug. I did that, and I submitted a pull request that fixed 3 bugs, and some were really old in the backlog. So it's really cool for surfacing stuff you didn't even know it existed. Right. So MCPs can be very helpful. They do burn your context window, and that's why a lot of people have kind of frowned away from them. And some are horrible, and it's like, you pull that, Jira in particular is bad. You do one call over Jira, an MCP on Jira, and your whole context window is gone before you even pull anything down. So, it's a two-edged sword. You can shoot yourself in the foot with it. Oops. Okay, MCPs in action. Okay, I kind of touched on this. I'm not, yeah, query a database. I didn't know that was in there. It's actually kind of interesting, maybe a little meta, I don't know. I actually had Claude Code build an MCP server, a couple MCP servers for me. So I built one for ADO. So that way, when someone says, oh, here's my pull request, I can feed it the URL pull request. It goes, sucks down the code, does a code review, and leaves comments back on the PR before I've even looked at it. I wrote one. Is anyone familiar with Avalonia UI? It's a open source-ish UI toolkit that basically takes the WPF open before WPF went open source. It's basically a WPF cross-platform. It's actually a really cool little framework. So I wrote an MCP, filled it with a ton of information on how to write all of the best practices, templates, other knowledge, caveat stuff to Avalonia UI, and turned it into an MCP because I had an app that I wanted to port over from GTK Sharp to Avalonia. I did a kind of a one-shot, threw it up on my GitHub, and months later, someone out of Germany sends me a message on LinkedIn and goes, dude, thanks for this. We figured to cut our migration to Avalonia UI by 50%. And I thought, I'm astounded it worked. Because I built it and I threw it up. And now Avalonia actually has their own MCP now. So I'm probably going to pull mine down. Let's see. Multi-agent. So this is kind of interesting that it did it this way. So this changed this week. In Claude Code, one of the things you can do is you can kind of create these personas. So you can get into like skills, agent files and whatnot. So you can create a skills markdown file. So you have your main one. So you launch Claude Code, you got your main agent, and then you can write like a skills thing. Or I'm lazy. I've only written one skills thing. I just tell it to like, hey, give me an expert at SDET, give me an expert C#, give me an expert QA manager, give me an expert product manager, and have all of them review all of the stuff and then give me a go, no go on it. And so you can create one that's like a researcher, cogen, testing, right? And the idea is that now you've got 4 different kind of entities working on the same problem. So this is where you kind of become, it's terrible. We're going to come up with a better term for this, but for the lack of a better term, I've heard people referring to you're becoming a micromanager. So you're these hyper intelligent, I view them as hyper intelligent interns or hyper intelligent lazy interns. So you can effectively have 4 different people looking at it with different perspectives. So you can kind of taint their perspective. Like you're looking at it from a testing point of view. You're looking at it from a developer point of view. You're looking at it from a product point of view. For me, working with Rune, I actually will throw in an audio file into the equation. Hey, have an audio file, come and look at this. So you can start generating personas that are a reflection of who your customers are. And if you're doing, like if you got some Agile and you got project manager or whatever else, they might create personas for you. You could potentially take those personas and turn them into skill files. And now you can have them always looking over your shoulder and looking at the code as you go. That is, to me, this is one of my favorite features of this. The reason I kind of mentioned this is changing is that if you think you can burn through your tokens fast now, they have this new thing. It's a team of agents as opposed to an agent and subagents. So it'll actually spin up full-blown agents, and it'll actually fire up more as you need them and adapt. And it'll just have 4 or 5 or however many agents you want working on the same project simultaneously. So it seems to just be doing a lot more. I can't remember from the top of my head. Did anyone watch or see what Anthropic just dropped the other day? It's the Claude C compiler. Did anybody see that? I got one nod. Okay. So for those that are, so it's actually kind of interesting. So Anthropic trained $20,000 in 2 weeks and built a C compiler, unattended. I haven't read too much into it, but basically they generated the C compiler, and in 2 weeks from file new to this compiler, they can compile a Linux kernel. So they wrote a C compiler with $20,000 in 2 weeks. Of course, one of the first bug reports was, oh, it doesn't even work with Hello World. And I haven't read the whole thread. Apparently it gets really good. A few data goes, oh, my paths were wrong. So I gotta love this, like, oh, I got the AI. They screwed up. And it's like, oh wait, no, I did. So, but nonetheless, it was remarkable. So I wonder if they actually use the new agent stuff with that. But to build a whole C compiler, can compile a Linux kernel. And I think it ran, I don't remember. I didn't get a chance. My life's been nuts the last 2 weeks, but it dropped last Wednesday. It was either last Tuesday night or last Wednesday morning that it dropped. Yeah, so spawning sub agents, which now you can just do agents. If you have money to burn, this is really cool. Headless, yeah. Orchestration, that's kind of getting into your micromanagement space. And I really like that. And even if you don't use AI to do most of your coding, it's so smart to have it review your stuff. If someone sends a PR and they add me as a reviewer, the very first thing I do is I pull down that branch and I click off. I send Claude Code after it. Have it. I say, hey, we're doing a PR review. Give me comments, because by default they'll go, hey, I can fix all these things for you. I'm like, no. I want a review. It's really cool. Was it yesterday? We had a project at work. We had to backport something, and we had these basically two copies of it, and they diverged, which is usually a nightmare. If you've ever, and this is all C code too. So these two code bases, it was the same product, but it diverged, and we had to all of a sudden get something new into this one and then bring this one up to speed. And it was going to be a nightmare. So I just threw AI at it, had it generate all the stuff, and then I sent it over to our embedded engineer and said, hey, dude, I'm so sorry. I try to cut your time in half, but you're going to have to review this. I don't have time to dig through all the C code. And he comes back and he goes, hey, it added these 2 sets of lines. Do you know why? Like, this wasn't in the original stuff. We started looking at it, and it turns out that we had a resource leak, and AI, when it ported everything over, actually fixed the resource leak as part of it, which was pretty remarkable because when I questioned, I said, why did you add these? Oh, yeah, no, those shouldn't have been added because it wasn't in the original code. And I said, yeah, but why was it there? He goes, oh, well, these other things were updated to prevent this resource leak, but someone didn't update this one. It was some USB driver thing. And it fixed it. I was like, that's pretty remarkable. So we exposed a leak that we didn't know existed. Yeah, so going back to the Claude MD. So the Claude MD file is off that init. You can write your own, blah, blah, blah. I recommend running /init on a new repository and then curating your Claude MD. That kind of gets committed in. Your team shares it. It might have things in there like, sorry? No, actually, honestly, that's the very last thing you probably want in there. And the reason is like, so most code bases, like a lot of people add like an editor config file or I don't know, I'm pulling at strings, grasping at straws here, a get attributes file, or they have some kind of like linting files or stuff like that. Things that you're like, as a team, we agree on this workflow, we agree on this structure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can put those in the Claude MD. So it's like, hey, we require an 80% code coverage. Let's put it in there. Hey, we don't want attributions from Claude Code constantly in our git log, so put that in there. I don't know, a variety of other things like this is how we do this is how we do that. Always use this testing framework, always use the latest, always do this. And so that way, when the LLM is running, there's a higher probability that you're basically helping it do the right thing the first time. So that translates into faster dev loop, faster. You're going to take one iteration to get something instead of multiple. Like, hey, you did it wrong again. So I guess actually that's maybe a part of a metric there to use is every time you use Claude Code or any LLM for that matter. I mean, each one will have their own Claude MD file. Every time you're like, stop doing that, you add it there, right? And sometimes it ignores it because it sucks sometimes. And so I actually will not use swear words, but I'll use a lot of capitals and exclamation marks. But ironically, when I first started like ChatGPT and some of these others and GitHub Copilot, I got to the point where I get frustrated and I berate the agent and I would threaten it and it was like, I'm sorry, sir. It would course correct. I don't feel like I do that as much, so it's probably doing a lot better. Permission controls is interesting. I've gotten, so if you've ever used Claude Code right off the bat, right? You start doing it's like, can I use the ls command? Can I use the cd command? Can I use the git command? Can I use .NET command? Can I use npm command? And it's going to ask you and prompt you. And so you can say yes, and if you do, it's going to prompt you over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. You can say yes for the session, but you can also control. You can say, all right, ask me, prompt me, but if you ever want to run ls, just do it. Don't ask me anymore. Oh, you want to use cd? Just do it. You want to, you know what? You want to run .NET test? Just do it. Or you can just do -- dangerous something. And it basically a bit carte blanche. Just go. Don't talk to me. Just do your job. And I have to be careful because it does seem to adapt. And I do a lot of git push forces or git force pushes because I'm constantly rebasing my feature branches because I hate seeing merge commits back into feature branches. So you watch a feature branch like merge main and like keep your git history clean. And so I've had to just go, oh yeah, I committed that for you and force pushed it. I'm like, ooh, hope that was okay. So side note, Git, if you're using Git branch policies, I highly recommend making sure those are enabled so you don't actually force push to main and piss off your entire team. There's usage metrics. I want to show that more than I want to talk about that. Oh yeah, so I mean, yeah, I guess these are things you can put in the Claude MD, and these are valid. More on a JavaScript. So for me, I use Playwright for my end-to-end all the time when it's web stuff, and yeah, so refactoring, debugging. This is actually pretty cool. So just the other day, I was pretty impressed. Our product manager, I think it was a product manager, fired up our desktop app and he goes, hey, this is running really great. Even my wife was like, man, this is way faster. So just done a big update in .NET. But then it like crashed and it got slower. I'm like, this sounds like it's running out of memory. It's a memory problem. But before I even said anything to him, he goes, hey, I followed our document and here's the output of JetBrains memory tool. I thought, you gotta be kidding me. This is a non-technical guy just gave me this information. So I start looking at it and I go, it's kind of what I expect. You know, in C#, there's massive allocations of strings, massive allocation of char arrays, and a massive amount of string builder stuff. And I thought, oh, this is a pain in the butt. Okay, well, all three of those ones that are just burning gigs of memory are all the same methods, whatever else. So I can jump in, I can get to it. I could probably even go pretty quick with Claude Code. But what I did was I actually copied the stack traces out of .NET memory tool, pasted in Claude Code. It cranked through and says, oh, you know, I put it in plan mode and it says, all right, we're going to do these 4 phases. And I said, no, I want you to write a whole bunch of unit tests to make sure that what's there works the way it works. So that when we make any changes, we have a way to validate that we didn't break any existing known functionality, right or wrong. We just don't want to break any the current behavior. And then I had it use benchmark.net and I had to write a whole suite of benchmarks and it calculated. And I've started saying, hey, keep a perf journal. So it runs all these numbers, saves off all the numbers, makes changes, runs all of the benchmark stuff again, writes down the numbers and so on. So by the end, I got this whole table of a bunch of numbers and I was able to kill off like 50 to 70% of the allocations in most cases. And some I killed 100% of the allocations. And it was just because I dropped the stack trace on. I was actually really shocked at how well that worked. I don't know. I haven't really used it for refactoring because, you know, JetBrains tools are really good. ReSharper, I guess specifically, Visual Studio, others, or SED is your tool of choice. I use it a ton to generate tests. So if QA or support hands me a ticket and it's a bug, I tell, hey, go write a test suite to prove that that bug exists. I have caught it cheating, and I kid you not, I have seen tests where it says assert true, true. So it has this logic, and then at the end it's just assert true is true. And I thought, oh, that's a waste of time. So I've gotten the habit of saying, all right, best practices, and I want no opt tests. And that seems to actually help. So this is where I go back to a hyper-intelligent, lazy intern. As an intern, might be like, oh, I'm not sure. I'm assert true is true. Look, guys, it's green. We're good, right? It compiled, tested green, doesn't prove anything. So I've been generating thousands of tests. Now, not all those tests get committed. And I have to be more, I try to be meticulous once I've generated that cluster of tests. And I'll curate them down and usually get them into the code base. But it allows me to scaffold rapidly around something and verify that the behavior either didn't change after I made my changes, or it changed in the way I wanted it to change. So I love doing the red green refactor approach with Claude. That seems to actually help improve the quality of the results that I'm getting out of Claude. And I would argue probably across the board on any model would be the case. And I love the fact that it brought this up, right? So git commit. Okay, I make an assumption. I assume everybody in this room uses Git, right? Just any exceptions? Okay. So on average, are your commit messages generally, I fixed this bug, the end? Or do you have developers that will put a title and kind of maybe even paragraph form details about what that commit was for? What do you see typically in your environments?
Very.
Okay.
Depends on the team.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, without doubt. But I mean, generally speaking, what is the average, the predominant thing that you see? You do see some verbose ones. That's awesome. I very rarely, if almost ever, see verbose. So definitely good. Like that's a good team culture thing. If you ever want to see some like crazy Git logs, go look at the Xamarin Android project on GitHub. They're like paragraphs and paragraphs. They have references to bug links, to lines of code, why the thing was an issue, how they adjusted, how they did this. And so you can read it. It's like a novel on the evolution of the Xamarin Android code base. And that was a culture thing. The team lead enforced it, so it became a thing for them, but they're pretty epic commit ones. But yeah, on average for me, what I've typically seen is it's just one sentence. How frequently have you been digging through a Git log and go, why did someone do this? And they've got a one sentence like, hey, I fixed this, it was broken. And you're sitting there going, why did you do that? Have any of you run into that? So maybe there's just a few of us that, anyway, so one of the things that the other thing is for those that went through a computer science degree in college, how many of your professors had these scoring matrices that, or matrices or whatever, what do they call them? Yes, thank you. And they're like, you must put these method header blocks, comment blocks on everything. What it does, what it inputs are, outputs. How many did any of you have to do that? I remember having to do that, and they're just so irritating me. I'm like, it's an add method. It takes 2 integers and returns an integer. I thought it was, and so I got away from that. With using these LLMs and stuff, I've actually moved to having very lengthy and detail-oriented Git commit messages. I've had it documenting code more often, because in a lot of ways it doesn't cost me. I do need to review it, but it doesn't cost me a whole ton. Because what I realize is that, one argument for let's not comment is because comments are a lie waiting to happen. If it's not a lie currently, it will become a lie because someone changes code and they don't update the comments. But as we move more to a LLM-driven industry, in our career, I'm finding what happens is my LLM needs to read the code a lot more, and I almost never read the code. So having more meaningful commits, having more meaningful documentation and landmarks throughout the code base increases the probability of that LLM returning valuable information or more accurate results. And so, because one of the tricks that I'll use when I'm, especially being new to a code base, I'll say, hey, why is this the way it is? go study the Git history of every single change to this file and this area of the code and build me a story. And so it'll go through and it'll get, well, this developer did this and based on this ticket and this and this and this. And so now I can go and read and go, oh, well, this developer started it. They found this bug and fixed this. Oh, this was a regression. Now they did this. Oh, and it stopped being used over here because this ticket removed that. And so now this is just dead code. And then I can go in and go, all right, yeah, you're right, it's dead code. It's actually been really good for getting rid of dead code because I can go and look at all of the Git logs and history and say, oh, they completely removed that feature. This developer didn't realize that this was left over. Because how many times have you walked in a code base and you go, is this dead code or not? Can I delete it or not? If I delete this, the whole thing falls over, but I can't figure out why I can't see anyone calling this code. So having it check that history and validate and get a good idea of why you may or may not want that has actually been another very useful thing that I've done with it. Yeah, that probably sums it up. It's like going to a restaurant, right? The number of dollar signs next to it. So yeah, so I mean, Opus 4.6 is out. I love using Opus. I spend money to be able to use Opus. So for me, I pay for the Max account. And once I burn through that, my work has an API account and I'll just switch over to the API account. So I think one Saturday I burned like $600 to $700 in tokens. And that was a Saturday, so it wasn't working, but I was doing work stuff. Sonnet was what I use a lot because I'm trying to think. I thought the context window on 4.6 changed, but I'm not 100% sure on that because I don't feel like it has. But like on Sonnet they have a 1 million token context, whereas Opus has been 200,000. And there's arguments of like when should you clean up your context and start over and whatnot. I haven't used Haiku very much because I live the pampered life of Opus. But this gets into like where you probably really ought to balance when you use which one. Like if you're writing or validating something really simple, you may want to switch. And it's super easy. You do /model, you pick your model, off it goes. The downside that I've noticed is that if you have like 4 Claude Code sessions going at the same time and you change the model in one, all of them change, which is kind of frustrating. Okay, optimizing token usage. Yeah, that kind of gets into it. We kind of talked about it using Claude MD. I don't know why Compact would be optimizing token usage. That seems dumb. Maybe there's a reason. Yeah, one focus per prompt. I'm terrible at that. That probably would be a better one. I had never used that. Right model. But yeah, obviously, because some cost less than others. Being more specific or less. Really, I feel like being specific or the specificity, whatever you want to use really depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're like, I've got to fix this one little bug, you want to probably be super specific. If you're like, you know what, just crunch this data. Tell me what you see, and so I don't know. Yeah, we talked. Oh, so this is the permission level. So that's what it's the .claude settings file. That's kind of what it looks like. All right, you're always allowed to use npm test, run, etc., but never let it run rm-rf or kernel or sudo. Sudo doesn't really. I don't know if sudo matters unless you're in the sudo group and stuff. So that's just be mindful. Like when you're adding and allowing it to do things, be very mindful on what you have access to, right? That's where like MCPs can become dangerous. Skills can be dangerous. There's ones where the whole Maltbot, Claudebot, etc. That whole thing came up because it was analyzing emails and someone was sending embedded ideas in the email, and it was going and executing it. So kind of a interesting remote execution type thing going on there. So just always be careful what you're getting into with that. Yeah, like I said, so advanced workflows where you get into multiple agents. It's now a team of agents. So That's kind of shifting right now. Slash commands, you can write your own commands and stuff. That kind of gets into like skills and other stuff. I haven't really played that. The Ralph Wiggum loop. So someone submitted that as a question. Is that person in this room or are they on Teams? I missed him since no one raised their hand. Maybe it's someone on Teams or someone that didn't make it. Is anyone aware of what the Ralph Wiggum loop is? Okay. It's probably a really fast way to get rid of all your tokens really quickly if you're not careful. So
Wait, I'm not aware of it.
so Ralph Wiggum loop's really interesting. Okay, so let's do this. This is kind of fun. So does anyone recognize the name Ralph Wiggum? Yeah, so it's from Seinfeld, Simpsons. So it's from Simpsons. And the whole idea is it's like, if you've messed with an LLM enough times, you're sitting there like, go do this. And it comes back like, dude, I said, go do this. Hey, I'm done. No, you're not. Go do that. You know, and it's kind of this like repetitive loop. And that's exactly what the Ralph Wiggum stuff is. It's done by, oh my goodness, okay. Just for context, yesterday was an insane day. I got 1 hour of sleep last night. I haven't drank soda in like 3+ years, almost 4 years. I'm on my second Monster in 2 days. Oh, I'm blanking on name. It's Gregory something. Shoot, I can't remember. Anyways, if you look at Ralph Wiggum, the guy that wrote Ralph Wiggum, he is definitely someone I would really consider following. And Steve Yegi, something like that. I would follow him, and then his co-author on the vibe coding book. They're dumping all kinds of stuff. So you get Ralph Wiggum, you get Gastown, beads, stuff like that. That's probably more advanced-ish stuff. I reckon. But yeah, so Ralph Wiggum's basically just keep doing it until you get to my definition of done. So in other words, I want to build a new website. I want to have a login. I want to store the data in the database. I want two-factor authentication. I want to forget password, blah, 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 blah. That's my definition of done, which I kind of laugh at. I'll get to it in a second. So basically say, here's what I want. Here's my done criteria. Just iterate until you've arrived at that done criteria. So every time it finishes an iteration, it says, did I achieve these goals? Nope, go again. Did I achieve these goals? Go again. So if you don't give it a max cycle count, it will just run until it's done. And if it never arrives, it may be that you run out of tokens faster than that. So it's super cool. It's fun. I recommend playing with it. Be very careful. Well, you know, because a lot of times you're like, it's kind of one of these ones where I have actually replied to an agent, stop being lazy and just do what I told you to do, right? And that's kind of where the Ralph Wiggum comes in. It's like, I don't want to babysit you, you know? It's like, again, going back to a hyper intelligent lazy intern. He goes, hey, I'm done. I'm like, no, you're not. Okay. Hey, I'm done. No, you're not. So, but yeah, it quite literally is a bash while loop, I think, or bash for loop, if you will. So definitely interesting. So like on this one thing I might do is, if I'm using Playwright and doing end-to-end tests on a web app, I might say, all right, I want all these tests, and you keep iterating till all the tests pass across all mobile and desktop browsers, something like that. All right. You can use, you know, whatever criteria you want to use as you're done. Tips, tricks. Okay. Yeah. And then we've talked about that. So I haven't really talked on contexts, but when your context fills up, what it does is it'll do a compact. I was about to say it's kind of like a defrag, but that's a horrible one because defrag, you don't lose data. Compact, you lose data. So compact basically tries to sum up what you've got so far, cram it down to a smaller amount of tokens, and then start again. So like once you hit, like I've hit my 2,000 tokens, I'm going to compress this down to like, I don't know, you know, 20, 30, 50. I don't know what exact details on that. And then I'm going to continue my tasks. So you have to be careful because a compact is a lossy event. So it might lose some critical detail of some critical information. I've seen people that are like, before a compact operation, they'll say, hey, go and brain dump to this file, run the compact, and then bring back in the information. So I don't know. I'm kind of, don't hold me at this, but maybe it's like a game of telephone, right? if we went around and, everyone's played the game of telephone, right? So I think conceptually it's in that ballpark. Also, it might be a reflection of trying to do too much in one go. So, but anyway, so were you raising your hand?
No, I would, like,
Yeah. So I noticed in the background, if you go into, so with Claude, with like Claude and like Claude MD files, setting files, MCP server, skills, commands, everything, you can have it on I think there's 3 levels. There's per project, per user, something else. So you can store stuff in your project folder, you can commit it into Git, or you can store it in your home directory, platform dependent /, right? And if you ever go and dig in there, there's tons of stuff now. So like if you start a Claude instance, you do a bunch of stuff, you leave it, and you're like, oh, I want to pick up where I left off. They've got this new resume thing. I just use Claude -- continue, and it reloads that same exact screen. So you're literally starting right where you left off. And I think they store all of like your prompts and stuff in a JSON-L file. So that's there. And I actually had to intentionally try and drop an entire conversation into Markdown and was trying to convert it from JSON-L to Markdown. So, I'm not 100% sure, because if you've noticed it, quite a few of these have been Markdown files. Markdown seems to be like the file type for data storage. Like if you get into like GitHub spec system, it's all Markdown files. You got agent Markdown files, scaled up Markdown files, Claude, et cetera, Markdowns. But then they have JSON-L in the background. If you're not familiar with JSON-L, it's basically just this hyper compressed-ish, one JSON thing per line without as much ceremony around it. So it's supposed to be more compact if it's structured data, I guess. So I don't know. So it might be a mix of things. Off the top of my head, I wish I had a good answer for you. I don't. I mentioned model. If you want to cry, you run /costs and you realize I've used up 80% of my tokens. And oh shoot, I'm gonna have to wait till Thursday morning at 9:59 before it resets. But it is a good command to run, so you can know where your costs are at. Like, all right, am I running low on this? Should I switch to a lower model because I need a longer runway on what I'm working on? It's good to monitor, so you're not racking up a heavy bill or burning all your tokens. Actually, I'm curious because there's also /usage. I wonder if it's the same thing. Anyways, Shift Tab. It's kind of interesting because there's terminal integrations. So Shift Tab. Not Shift Tab. I think Shift Enter. Oh, I wonder if that works. Either it generated this incorrectly or. But anyways, so you can do multiple lines. So like you write out something, go to the next line. Like here's my log file. Next line, here's the error. I'm still struggling to get Windows Terminal to work properly with this. So the classic \enter will let you do the multi-line there. It always thinks my Windows Terminal is inside of Visual Studio, and it won't do that. That's kind of annoying. I haven't used the app. I know app, like I use it with Copilot. Claude, I just kind of let it do its thing. Adding images, you can drag and drop them now. It's actually pretty neat. I apologize. I don't know what time do I have to. Am I just like rambling on and on and on here? Like
we're over what we typically do, but.
So okay. I won't take it terribly personally if anyone just walks up. If you throw a chair at me, I might take it a little more personally. I actually have not done a whole lot of pre-commit hooks and stuff with Git. There's probably some cool stuff that you can do with that. Custom / commands, like if you have certain things on your team. I've seen people do that. I haven't. That's not a reflection on the usefulness. It's just a reflection on how busy I've been and haven't had time to step back and work on that kind of stuff. But the problem is like every day, every week, feels like there's just so much more stuff that I feel like I'm sliding further and further behind. And I mean, yeah, it's just wild how fast things are moving right now. I mean, there's a new version of Claude Code. It feels like every few hours these days. Yeah. Ignore all of this. Just go to the website, install Claude Code, and now there's a native one. But that's pretty recent, so this is like a week, couple weeks, or a few weeks out of date. Etc. We'll continue. Oh, that's fun. It actually stripped this off of the thing. I do not have any JetBrains licenses to give out. So I think that's actually the end of the slide deck, almost. Oh, yeah. Question. Okay, so here's what we can do. We can do questions. I can pull up my terminals and show you some of the stuff I've been doing. What would everyone like to do?
Did have one person online who requested to see actual usage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the hard thing is I could do this for hours. There's just so much stuff. But this is kind of cool. So I looked at this slide deck for the first time and I felt like it did a pretty good job of following what I kind of would want to do. So I was pretty impressed with that. No, I won't stop sharing. I'm going to end the slideshow. And I'll share the slide deck out. I think it'll be fun to do that. All right, let's see if I can find a cool little project that I was working on today. Oh, okay. In fact, watch. We'll even. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, mine resets on the 16th. So I've got 4 days before it resets. And I started using this one on this account on Monday.
If you're not sharing with me right now, I don't know if that's intentional.
Oh, no. I apologize. It is not intentional. I was sharing a window, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh shoot, that's not the right one. Let me share that window. Okay, how's that? Excellent. All right. Okay, so what's funny, and don't let me forget, I actually have something to show for a lawyer because I sent it to my friend who's a lawyer. Remind me, I'll bring it up. Yeah, so my current session, obviously I haven't been using it right now because I'm doing this. So you can see all model sonnet. Let's see. See cost. So cost will actually, this did actually break it down by tokens. Oh, okay, they've changed this up. This is actually really neat. I love this. I didn't know this was a feature until just the other day. There's a /context command that I wasn't aware of. It's really neat because it actually shows you a breakdown of your tokens. So right now I'm at 87,000 tokens of my 200,000. So I'm almost halfway through my context window. You can see like MCP tools. I don't have very many enabled, but it's burning 13,000. My skills is 2,000. My messages is 42. My free space and so on, right? So here's my playwright MCP. Let's see what else. I've got this Obsidian one, which I should disable because I'm not really using it. One of the things I tried to do with the Obsidian MCP was, as I was working on stuff, I was trying to have it dumped to like a daily journal. So that way I can go and review all of that was going on in all of my sessions throughout the day and stuff. Claude and Chrome, it's kind of neat for bringing the web world back in. One of my favorite MCPs doing a lot of .NET related Microsoft technologies is the Microsoft Docs MCP. Because I can say, hey, while you're building this out or figuring this out, go and search through the Microsoft Docs and pull down knowledge from that. Found that it's pretty simple, pretty useful. So one of the ones I've got is a senior code reviewer. That's the one skill I've built so far. I need to build more. There's kind of this weird space where there's MCPs and there's plugins. It kind of seems like they're one and the same, but maybe function differently. I haven't dug into plugins, but they have a marketplace now, and So there's different plugins I've got. So like there's a code architect, there's a code reviewer. Beads I mentioned. So Beads is kind of interesting. I'll just touch on it gently. It is a work tracker, like a to-do list, but for an LLM. It's not one that you would go and review yourself. It's all, but it is markdown files, so you can look through it. I've got a global Claude MD file that I use. Let's see, additional plugins. And you can see like kind of the token burn on all of these. So you can see what's costing you and whatnot. So some pretty cool analysis tools in there. There's another one. Oh god, who knows what this is going to show up? It's not perfect yet. It's brand new. It's called Insights. So it's going to go out. It's going to analyze how I'm using Claude Code, generate this huge document that I can review, and it'll start giving me pointers on how I can optimize and better use Claude Code itself. So while that's thinking, no, that's everything I've shown so far is built in. Well, Beads is not, but any command I've actually run is built in. So context, usage, cost, I think is one that you only really use if you ran cost, it would just say you're on a regular user account, so there's no cost. But if you're using the API service, it'll give you a cost breakdown. So that's why I was surprised when it showed all that other stuff. Let's see. Okay, so while that's thinking, let me show you what I've been building with this. So I have a code directory, and I just have it full of Git repositories. And the problem I have, so you can see, instead of using the work trees, which would be smart, I have Rune 2 through 10, and then different projects, and whatever else, right? And then I even have project repositories inside of those. And I got tired of trying to figure out, oh crap, okay, which one's on what, and So I decided to write a tool. So .NET 10, this is a new feature in .NET 10 for anyone that's .NET, or anyone really. There's a new feature where they have single file apps. And so I can take the C# file and do / that C# file, and it'll actually execute it and run it as a program. If we look at the, oops. Oh, I can, it's just too far. So if I do this, see, it's got the shebang environment.NET, pulls in this NuGet package, and then it sets up some properties like it's a net 10, which it has to be because that's when it was added. Pack is a tool command is this, blah, blah, blah. And then starts digging the code. It's about 100,000 lines. It's 100,000 lines of code. I don't remember. Okay, good. So this is kind of cool. So check this out. If you do bang, it puts it in bash mode. And I've noticed that this works with almost all CLI tools. So on a Mac, I can say open, paste the file in, and it's going to open up this page right here. Oh, that really changes. All right, so this is the insight. So this is going from December 7th to February 13th. I've had 1,300 and 1,400 messages, over 146 sessions in Claude. And so it gives you kind of breakdown what's working, what's hindering you. I love the fact that what's hindering me is Claude side. Buggy code and wrong approach starts. Quick wins to try / commands, ambiguous workloads, whatever. Okay. And then, so then it gives me a breakdown. Kind of, so I'm averaging 57 a bit messages per day. Lines added, removed, which actually doesn't seem quite right. That seems wrong. Let's see, different projects I've been working on, kind of how I'm using it, what tools I'm using. It flatters you. I'm a prolific, ambitious builder who treats it as part of my core. I do treat it as part of my core development. Let's see. User response, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I mean, it's just a lot of information, but it's kind of cool because it does touch on like, hey, there's the new parallel multi-agent task, orchestration. Oh, impressive things that you did. See again, flattery gets you everywhere. So I keep paying them.
Clarify what you did versus what it did.
It does kind of break that down if you want to. I mean, this is a big document, you know. We're not even halfway through it. So it does kind of touch on like some of that. There's one thing I am actually looking for in particular. Yeah, so it's just it's kind of fun to look through. It's kind of like a health checkup, maybe. You know, assembled 1.1 gigabyte gigs of traffic data, 80,000 plus crash recorded, having discovered down, blah blah. Oh no, sorry. So one of my neighbors is a fireman EMT guy. So I built in like an hour or two, I built a whole web page, added Esri ArcGIS maps into it and plotted all the data and just aggregated all this traffic data about Spanish Fork, Route 6, and Utah County. And I think it started pulling from the state. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, where things went wrong, where things go wrong. What was fascinating, I don't know if it's going to be in this one. Let's see if I can find it. Some skills hooks. And so it's kind of cool. It gives you a fair bit of information. This one actually surprised me. So this new multi-agent thing, it says, hey, you should consider having us build an API contract between the agents. And my first thought was, you didn't do that? I would have assumed that was there. So it kind of gets into different interesting things on the horizon. Oh yeah, so yeah, see, look, it goes, hey, here's your prompts. So contract phase, go ahead and build this contract. Spawn phase integration. So it actually gives me the prompts on how to build an API contract between the agents. So it's new, be cautious as you go through it, but yeah, it's kind of an interesting file. All right, so now this is done. So what I did was I built this little guy. How many people build little tools randomly every once in a while to help with stuff? It feels like I do it quite a bit. I got thinking about it. As developers, as individuals in general, we make decisions constantly. I don't know, there's probably some stat on like how many decisions we make in a given day. Our decisions are a reflection of the quality of data points and information that we have and our ability to analyze that data and execute on it, right? So I always like building tools to help me visualize data better. So I use this. It's going to take a second to load. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't work, we'll just move on to the next. Really? It's really not going to work. That's obnoxious. There we go. So first I had to just build a nice little like console thing. And I said, you know what? Build me a TUI instead, a terminal user interface. And base it on similar on an app called LazyGit. So right now it's going through, it's scanning all of my directories to find all of the Git repositories and what its current state is. And I think my parallel feature that broke with when I converted it to a TUI. Come on, let's go. All right, well, that's thinking. Oh, it's going to do something. There it is. Okay. Yeah, so now it went through, it looked at all my repositories. So what's kind of fun is I haven't played it yet. My son got it. That was really cool. Has anyone played with Hightail, the new kind of like Minecraft replacement of sorts? Oh, Hightail. So I had it build a plugin for that game. I said, here's the game, go search the internet, build it. I haven't run it yet, but this is kind of cool. So it shows me the commits on that one. If I go to one that has a bunch of changes in it, I can see the status, basically the Git status for it and what commits are there. So I built this in the background in a few minutes without looking. So I love using it to build tools. So let's see if I can. that one. Oh, Spanish Fork. Okay. So I mentioned how you can kind of pick up where you left off. It's like, oh, I was working on this project, kind of going back to that context switching idea. So we're gonna do Claude. So I like to live life on the edge. So I do dangerously skip permissions. It's a do whatever the heck you want. All right, so if I run this, it'll take a minute to come up, but it actually picks up right where I left off. So I can see what I was doing right then, the last stuff I was doing. So I think I was getting it ready to post it up somewhere where someone can play with this. So let's do. All right. Oh, you got to be kidding me. Such file. Oh, no, I know why. Dashboard. So I had never built anything in Vue.js and really anything in Node until like a month ago, I think, a month and a half ago. Check this guy out. I'm pretty proud of it. It'll take a second for the data pour in if I didn't break it. I broke it. I did break it. Oh, that sucks. So anyways, I built this in less than an hour, and it did have data in it. I tried to make it be a little bit more live, but I got it to show different patterns on here. I've never really used Esri and ArcGIS, and it added all of that for me. I could show trends. Dang it, that's unfortunate. Actually, you know what? Let's try some. Let's experiment a little bit. The data is no longer rendering. Let's just do it that way. Okay, so there's that. To give you an idea of just how many terminals and stuff I play with, like there's a list of my terminals of different projects all running. Like for example, I needed to test Linux ARM 64 build. So I built my Raspberry Pi up, set it up, and then I pointed at it and I said, hey, go build this for me, and run it. Oh, you know what? I actually do have a different toy that I can show off that I like. Do a Spire run. So one of the projects at work that I've been doing in the background is I want to orchestrate and manage a whole bunch of different agents and bots and whatever else, so I can automatically install products in different environments, aggregate logs back, and basically have action items with them. So, oh dang it, Docker's not running. That might be okay. So, actually, just out of curiosity, anybody familiar with .NET or Aspire now? I guess I kind of dropped the .NET. It's a cool orchestration tool. So I can set it up. See, it just kicked off created my Postgres containers. For my front end that's using Vue.js, it runs the install and then kicks it off, and then it's got my API server. It loads it all up for me. And then that way, I can come in and like that guy. So I built this tool. I called it Maestro. And the idea, the containers are probably not running, but the cool thing is in Claude, I just said, hey, go and generate a whole bunch of Docker containers and inject this agent we wrote into it. And it's all set up where, let's see. It's all using SignalR and doing real-time bidirectional communications. You can see I had it build out a bunch of agents. Let's see, make sure the local agent and at least 5 Docker containers are running. So anyway, so I've just been basically, this one's probably more of a vibe coding. I've just been coding it in the background. So these are all the different systems that are online. Let's see, is the Mac one running? There we go. Okay, Mac. This one's the more interesting. Whoops, I can edit it. I don't want to. No, I don't want to edit it. Let's jump over this guy. Oh, it's not running. It says it's running. Oh, there we go. Okay, it finally kicked up. So that's the nice thing too, is I don't have a script or anything. I just said, hey, Claude Code, go take care of this. So it allows me to do a lot of projects in parallel. So now I can come over, I can look at software management. So these are all of the applications that are installed. These are the services on my Mac that's running. I broke the logs, but the idea is that it will come in and it'll aggregate all my logs, and then I have it putting it into a timescale DB and Postgres. See if these guys are running as well. Yeah, so these are the packages running on my container, Docker container. My services is glitched. I gotta fix that. But so I've got this Rune monitor agent here. So if I was running Rune on there, it would aggregate the logs back. So I can spider it out. Devices, I can come in, reserve it. Let's see. Yeah, I'll just reserve it for 4 hours. Oh, validations. There we go. So now it's flagged as a result. So this is just something I'm building in the background. So if the thing I love is if you're an engineering team, you're like, oh, it'd be cool to have something like that, but we can't afford the resources. Instead of saying, well, we got to dedicate this engineer for the next 6 months on this dumb project that we really need, but we can't afford to waste 6 months on it. I just run this in the background. Every few hours, I might just pop back over to that. I'll set up different desktops across the top, and I'll just have them like project-based, and I'll have multiple terminals, Claude Code running. I'll go back, I'll test some changes, I'll give it a bunch of new data, and I'll say, go take care of it. And so it just slowly builds and iterates on its own. It's super useful. The first prototype of this was way simpler. I did it to test something for myself. I gave it to the QA guy. It's like, yeah, I'm actually using this regularly. And I'm like, all right, just wait till I build the next version. And this will be all set up Docker Compose. So I can now hand it to anyone that's running Docker. And now, boom, they've got this whole environment, or we can centralize it. Just different projects like that. See if I can find this other one. This one's a good example of just doing something. Contracts, I think.
I want to see the lawyer stuff.
All right.
The lawyer joke.
You know, my favorite lawyer joke that I've heard is it's not fair to judge my profession by 100,000 bad apples. And that was a lawyer at a big event. Anyway, so I have a basement apartment. And I thought, oh, this is cool. Let me feed it my contract. And this data is all fake. This is anonymized data. So I had it read in the contract. The first time I built it, I actually built it and extracted out the handwritten information in that contract as well. And I had it build this, and I said, no, anonymize it so I can share this and show it off. So basically, this is an overview of the rental agreement that I have for my basement apartment. Some of the details are accurate, but, you know, build year is probably about right. Square footage is probably right. That's, you know, so the addresses are all wrong and the names are all wrong. But then I can come over to the financials, and now I got some pretty charts on what it will look like. So in theory, I could give this to a tenant and be like, hey, if you want to visualize what the impact to you is going to be. And it's like, well, if I have 5 late months, that's the impact that's going to have on my year. Here's a timeline. So lease sign, move-in date, blah, 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 etc. Whoops. Key dates, lease clauses. So you can come through and go, okay, what's the deal with that? All right, utilities, what's the policy on pets? Let's see, right of entry. So it breaks it all down, and then it has a breakdown of the parties involved. I thought was pretty cool. So it digests. I handed it a PDF, and it built that in like 60 seconds.
So I'm not as techy as you guys, okay?
That's actually what's super cool about this.
So I have, like, what is it? Where is this running?
It's just an HTML file. So you literally just go. You can say open file. You can double click on here. Actually,
It's just a file.
Yeah.
This,
So you watch. Check this out. So if I open, oh, no, I got it. Sorry, I got multiple screens here. All right, so check this out.
Like I use.
There we go. That's it.
Coding, okay?
Yeah.
But I use that web, so I assume that like the product produced by Lovable, right, is being hosted on a server somewhere out in.
Yeah,
West,
somewhere, right?
and so this is hosted on your computer.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's a glorified rendered text file.
Okay.
It just so happens that a browser knows how to render that text in a graphical fashion.
Stuff that gives you toggles, you can.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a
So-
glorified rendered text files on it. It looks,
Yeah, it's got like little, you can hover over stuff and,
yeah, so to someone like me, it looks like magic, and then you guys, it's like. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
so here, actually, so kind of to your point here, let's do this. Yeah, I'll show you what I did to make that file.
So if I could use Lovable, do you think I can use this? Right? What would I-
Oh, my buddy that's a lawyer, I convinced him to go and pay $20 a month for Claude Code to do this. So the beauty of it is what
You guys want to use Claude Code?
yeah, so this is a paid only feature.
Right.
So it's 20, 100 or 200, or I've got lots of money to burn. For a person that's going to use it on and off, $20 is I would recommend starting at $20. I did 20. After a couple of months, I jumped to 100, and then I jumped to 200 within a
Right.
few weeks. But the cool thing is like, so here I said, can you review this contract and then build an interactive web page using Tailwind CSS with all the details, timelines, any charts, etc. over the first 12 months, replace handwritten details with fake data based on a basement apartment in Spanish Fork in 2026. That was it. That basically, what you saw was a result of that one prompt. And so that's why I say it's interesting because you don't have to be terribly technical. Like, I mean, obviously I had a login problem, so I had to fix that. But the technical aspect in here is Tailwind CSS, because the rest of it's like, hey, build me an interact. I want something I can interact with, right? And then I want details, da 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 da. So the thing that I love, I use it. I actually build a ton of websites incessantly because I can tell it, go crawl the internet, go do all of this, go do that, and then bring it back and make a nice website. And the Tailwind CSS is just so it looks nice. And that's it. So
So, okay, after this, I need to, well,
We're gonna say, we are about 40 minutes over. We should probably close.
oh no, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I guess, yeah, and I'm happy to stay and talk longer, or, you know, I figure people have crept out and as needed. Oh, I guess I just thinned the herd though. So whoever remained, you're welcome. You have a higher probability of winning an